Men like you were built to carry trays, not stand among us.
Gregory Harding says it to the only black man in a room full of white executives, and then the wine leaves two glasses at once. He and Douglas Sterling throw it together, and the whole room bursts out laughing before it even lands. It splashes across a gray suit. They took him for a waiter the moment he walked in.
To the hell!
Sterling says, lifting his glass. Bennett Wells does not wipe it away. He lets it soak in and asks quiet.
Why does my face decide that for you?
The laughter only grows. Phones rise. Not one person steps in. What none of them know is that the $500 million contract they're celebrating sits on this man's desk. Unsigned. His pen decides all their futures. Stay. Tell me where you felt this. Rewind 6 hours. Bennett Wells wakes before the city does. He drinks his coffee black at a bare counter. The apartment is quiet, in the way a disciplined life is quiet. One cup, one spoon. A window that faces east because he likes to see the light arrive before anyone asks anything of him. He reads a single file twice the way he reads everything twice. He does not trust a document until it has told him the truth on the second pass. The first pass is what the writer wants you to see. The second is what the writer forgot to hide. On his desk downtown sits a contract. $500 million. Water mains under old neighborhoods. Transit tunnels beneath the river. A decade of public works that will outlive every name attached to it. His signature is the last thing it needs. He has not signed it. Not yet. Bennett runs the city's infrastructure and contracts authority. He came up slow. No family money. No shortcuts handed down. He is the only black man to ever hold the chair, and the walls of his office still carry the portraits of the men who held it before him, none of whom look like him. He learned young that the quiet ones see the most. Nobody performs for a man they think is nobody. So he stays quiet and he watches and he lets people show him who they are before he ever shows them who he is. That belief became a method. When a firm wants $500 million of public money, Bennett visits their events, early, unannounced, alone. He watches how a room treats the person it assumes can do nothing for it. He calls it the truest interview there is. A resume lies. A dinner speech lies. The polished slide deck lies most of all. The way a man speaks to someone he believes is beneath him does not lie. It is the one thing money never remembers to rehearse. Tonight, the firm is Halloran Sterling Group. They want the water contract badly enough to throw a rooftop party for a deal they have not won. The invitation called it a celebration of partnership. Bennett read that word twice, too. There is one thing he has not told anyone. Last month, a security log flagged his personnel file. Someone outside his office had opened it, pulled his history, his old cases, his home address. He read the note twice, then filed it away and told himself it was nothing. He is beginning to suspect it was not nothing. He chooses a plain gray suit. No pin, no car service. He does not announce himself to the building or the host. He rides the elevator up alone, listening to the hum of cables and the murmur of a crowd he has not yet met. The doors open onto candlelight and the clink of glass, warm air thick with perfume, and grilled things on small plates. Nobody turns to look at him. That is exactly what he wants. A young woman in a catering vest passes with a tray of champagne. Her name tag reads Grace. She gives him the small, tired smile that two invisible people trade across a loud room. He nods back. He does not yet know she will change everything. Bennett moves to the edge of the crowd. He takes no drink. He starts nowhere in particular and lets the room come to him. The contract is already on his desk. Not one person at this party knows that yet. A man in a silver tie waves him over. It is Gregory Harding, Senior Vice President. He does not ask a name. He holds out an empty glass like it is obvious what a man like Bennett is for. Take this. Bennett looks at the glass. He does not take it. I'm a guest, he says. The words land wrong in that room. A guest who looks like the help. A guest who will not fetch. Harding's smile thins at the edges the way a smile does when it has been contradicted in public. Men like you were built to carry trays. Harding says loud enough now for the circle around him. Not stand among us. The executives lean in, sensing sport. Someone laughs before anything funny has happened. And then Harding turns his wrist. Red wine runs down the gray suit. Slow, deliberate, not a spill, a choice. A heartbeat later, Douglas Sterling, the firm's chief executive, lifts his own glass and throws the rest across Bennett's chest. "To the help," Sterling says. The room bursts out laughing. It rolls through the crowd like surf off warm water. 2 glasses, 2 men. A stranger they have decided is furniture and now decoration. A phone rises to the left. A small red dot glows. In this world, a man's humiliation is content, and content is currency. Bennett does not step back. He does not raise a hand. He does not wipe it away. He lets the wine soak into the wool. He feels the warmth spread through the fabric to his skin, cooling as it goes. He smells the sour grape of it sharp under the perfume. He hears the laughter, and he hears something else too, threaded beneath it. The soft scrape of a knee on tile. "Why does my face decide that for you?" he asks. Quiet. Even. A question, not a plea. Harding tilts his head, amused. Because it always has. More laughter. It is easy laughter, the kind a group makes when it has silently agreed that cruelty is permitted here, that no one at this height will ever be asked to answer for it. The scrape of tile comes again. It is Grace. She has crouched to gather the shards of a glass someone dropped in the fun, her fingers moving carefully around the broken edges. Her eyes stay down where the danger is. For half a second, she glances up at Bennett. Something passes between them. Not pity, recognition. 2 people in a room that has already decided what they are. Bennett files it the way he files everything on the second pass. 2 glasses, 2 men. 1 young woman who did not laugh, who bent down to clean up a mess that was not hers. "Send the cleaning bill to the front desk," Harding calls as Bennett finally turns away. The circle laughs again. Bennett does not answer it. He does not give the phones the reaction they are waiting for. But he does not leave either. That is the part they will remember later. He finds a place near the wall, wine drying dark and cold across his chest, and he keeps watching. He watches Harding return to his story. He watches Sterling accept a fresh glass. He watches who laughs longest and who looks for just a moment uneasy. The night is not over. Neither is he. They will spend a year regretting 2 glasses of wine. The party forgets him fast. That is its mistake. Bennett stands at the edge and lets the room show him everything. He has learned that people reveal the most right after they believe they have won. Harding works the crowd, glad-handing, retelling the wine like a joke that improves with each telling. By the 3rd version, Bennett has grown a mop in his hand. Sterling holds court near the bar, easy and expansive, a man who has never once been made to wait for anything. A vice president lifts her glass and offers a toast without a trace of shame. "To our deep commitment to community partners," she says, and the room drinks to it. Bennett does not drink. He does not smile. He remembers a name, Beacon Civil Works. In the paperwork on his desk, Beacon is the reason Halloran Sterling qualifies for the city's minority business set aside. On file, Beacon performs 30% of the public work. On file, Beacon is the proof this firm shares its wealth with the very people it just poured wine on. Bennett has read that file twice. The second pass left him uneasy in a way he could not yet name. Now standing in a room that toasts community partners while it laughs at a black man, it took for a waiter, the unease finally has a shape. A server offers him a fresh napkin. He takes it, thanks her by name, and does not use it. The stain stays where it is. He wears it on purpose now. Evidence carried on the body. Near the bar, 2 men talk with their heads close together, the way people do when the words are not meant for sharing. One of them is City. Bennett knows the profile before he knows the face. Warren Doyle, Deputy Director of Procurement, the man half of City Hall, calls the most honest official in the building. Doyle laughs at something Harding says and grips his shoulder like an old friend, like a man who owes another man nothing because everything has already been settled between them. Then he catches Bennett watching, and his smile stalls for exactly 1 second before he looks away. Bennett files that too. The honest man does not want to be seen standing next to the vice president. A young analyst drifts near, phone still warm in his hand, grinning about the busboy. "You should probably go, He tells Bennett, not unkindly, the way you'd guide a lost man toward the exit. "This isn't really your kind of thing." "It's exactly my kind of thing," Bennett says. Harding overhears and laughs. Careful, he might try to unionize the caterers. The circle laughs on cue. Cruelty has become a group activity, a way of belonging, and no one at the top has noticed the quiet man in the corner cataloging every face and every name. Sterling wanders over at last, swirling a fresh glass, already bored of his own party. "You're a strange one," he says. "Most people would have left an hour ago." "Most people would," Bennett agrees. "So what is it you do?" Sterling asks the question of a man making conversation he does not intend to remember. Bennett considers it. He considers the toast about community partners, the name Beacon, the honest man who looked away. "I sign things," he says. "Do you now?" Sterling smirks and starts to turn. Then the young analyst hurries to his side and whispers hard against his ear. Bennett watches the words arrive. Sterling's smile does not fall. It freezes, which is worse. He turns back slowly, and this time he looks at Bennett with careful eyes, the eyes of a man recalculating a sum he thought was already finished. He has just been told the stranger's name. Sterling clears his throat. The room does not know why. "Everyone," he says too loud, reaching for the ease he had a moment ago and not quite finding it, "I'd like to introduce a special guest." Harding frowns. He has not been let in on the turn. He is still holding the empty glass like a trophy from a war he thinks he won. "This is Bennett Wells," Sterling says, "Executive Director of the Infrastructure and Contracts Authority." Silence. Then a chair scrapes near the back and someone sets a glass down too hard. The room recalculates in real time. You can watch it move from face to face. The stranger in the wine-stained suit is not the help. He is the man who decides whether Halloran Sterling receives its $500 million. Harding's grin collapses one muscle at a time. The glass tilts in his hand. A last drop of wine falls to the floor, and in the new quiet, it is the loudest sound in the room. Bennett does not gloat. That is not who he is. He has stood in too many rooms that wanted him small to enjoy making anyone else feel it. "The contract you're celebrating, he says, has been on my desk all week." He lets it sit. He has learned the weight a silence can carry. It isn't signed. Somewhere a phone lowers. The red dot goes dark. Nobody is filming the busboy anymore. Now they would give anything to have never filmed him at all. "I like to visit a firm before I approve $500 million of public money," Bennett says. "I like to see how it treats the people it believes can do nothing for it." Sterling starts to speak. Bennett lifts one hand, not sharply, just enough to close the space. "You answered that tonight," he says. Harding finds his voice. It comes out thin, stripped of its earlier weight. "It was a joke. Nobody meant anything by you. 2 glasses, Bennett says. "I counted." He turns to Sterling. His voice does not rise. It does not need to. "The review of this contract begins Monday. It will be thorough." The word thorough moves through the room like cold air sliding under a door. Every person in it now understands that the celebration was premature and that something has shifted tonight that money may not be able to shift back. Bennett sets the unused napkin on a passing tray. He straightens the ruined jacket over the stain he chose to keep. He walks toward the elevator without hurry, without a backward glance, and this time no one calls after him. No one dares. Near the coat stand, Grace watches him go. Their eyes meet once more. She gives the smallest nod, the kind that is not a greeting but a decision quietly made. The doors close on a room full of people doing arithmetic they should have done an hour ago. Thoreau is not a threat. It is a promise. And Bennett Wells keeps his promises. Monday morning, Bennett does not open the contract. He opens the firm. He makes 2 calls before the coffee cools. The first is to Delia Morgan, an investigative reporter who has circled public procurement in this city for a year and never found the door in. The second is to Ruth Callahan, the city's inspector general, who has subpoena power, a long memory, and no patience left for men who mistake her politeness for weakness. They meet in a small room with bad light and worse coffee. Bennett lays out the night without heat. The wine, the toast about community partners, the name Beacon Civil Works. Warren Doyle laughing at the bar with the vice president. Delia leans forward at the name. "Beacon," she says. "I know that name. I've chased it for months. I could never make it real." That is the first thread. They pull it together. Beacon Civil Works exists on paper. It has an address, a certification, and a filing that claims it performs 30% of Halloran Sterling's public work. That 30% is not a detail. It is the whole trick. It unlocks the set-aside meant for firms owned by the very people the system was built to shut out. Callahan pulls Beacon's bank records under audit authority. She spreads the printouts across the table and reads them the way Bennett reads a contract, twice slowly. The numbers tell a simple, ugly story. Money flows from the city to Haller and Sterling. Haller and Sterling pays Beacon its 30%. Then within days, sometimes within hours, Beacon wires almost all of it straight back to Haller and Sterling, minus a thin fee. There, Callahan says, tapping a line, in on Tuesday, out on Thursday, every quarter, same rhythm. The money runs in a circle. Beacon does no work. Beacon is a costume the big firm wears to look like something it is not. That is fronting. It is a crime. It is the first receipt and it is clean. Callahan lays Beacon's filings beside the firm's public reports. On the certification form, Beacon lists a workforce of 42. On the payroll record, she subpoenas Beacon has no employees at all. Not one. 42 people who exist only in a field on a form. A company with no workers, she says, performing 30% of a $500 million job. She circles the number. It is the kind of lie that only survives because no one is ever asked to look at it twice. Bennett looks at it twice. But he wants a human being, not just a ledger. A crime on paper is easy to argue away. A crime with a face is not. Delia finds the face. His name is Curtis Wade. They meet him in a diner near the rail yard vinyl booth. Coffee that stays full because he never drinks it. He talks with both hands wrapped around the mug, like it might warm something the room cannot. They came to me with papers, he says. Nice men, good suits. Told me I'd own a construction company. Told me I'd get a check every quarter and never have to lift a thing. All I had to do was sign my name and stay quiet. Did you ever do any work? Delia asks. Curtis laughs without any joy in it. I never poured a single foot of concrete. I never hired a soul. I signed, I cashed a small check, and I looked the other way. I needed it. My wife was sick that year. He looks at Bennett and his eyes are steady and ashamed at once. I didn't know I was the reason they got the whole thing. I thought I was just a name on a form. You were the door they walked through, Bennett says. Not cruel, just true. The second receipt has a face now, and the face is tired, and it will stay with you longer than any number. Outside the diner, Delia and Bennett stand a moment in the cold. He's telling the truth, she says, but a scared man's truth doesn't survive a good lawyer. Then we don't build a case on him, Bennett answers. We build it on paper he can't take back. We use him to know where to dig, not to prove it. That is the discipline of it. A frightened witness points the way. The documents carry the weight. Delia writes that down too. The threads keep coming and Callahan follows each one to its knot. She pulls the scoring records, the official sheets that ranked each bidder for the water contract. Bidding is supposed to be blind, scored on merit. Sealed until the deadline, she finds an email chain instead between Gregory Harding and Warren Doyle dated 3 weeks before the award. In it, they trade numbers like men splitting a check. Harding suggests figures. Doyle agrees to them. One line in Harding's own hand reads that the competition won't be a problem if the technical score lands where we discussed. The third receipt is bid rigging in plain language with 2 names on it. Then the badge logs. Every door in a city building keeps a record, and the record does not care who is honest. The access data shows Warren Doyle entering an offsite office the week before the award. The office is leased by Haller and Sterling. 2 men who should never have met privately, and the door remembers the hour. 9:03 in the evening. The 4th receipt corroborates the 3rd. The paper trail and the physical trail now agree. Bennett notices something in the scoring sheets that makes him read them a 3rd time. He almost misses it because it is designed to be missed. The document carries a version history buried in its own data. One score was edited after the submission deadline had already closed. A losing number became a winning number hours after the window shut and the bids were supposed to be locked. Someone reached back in time, Callahan says, and changed the answer. The 5th receipt is quiet, and it is the most deadly of them all because it cannot be explained as an opinion or a judgment call. A closed window was reopened. That is not bias. That is a hand on the scale. Then Callahan finds the thing that changes the temperature in the room. She pulls the firm's internal files under the widening audit, and inside them she finds a dossier on Bennett Wells. compiled weeks before the rooftop party, before Bennett ever set foot in that room, before anyone threw a glass of wine. Harding's people had researched him, mapped his history, pulled his old cases, flagged a contract he approved years ago. There are notes in the margins, cold and procedural, about how to raise a conflict of interest and force him off the review. They did not know Bennett would walk into their party. That was chance. But they had already decided to remove him. The party was an accident. The plan was not. The wine was ignorance. The dossier was intent. Bennett sits with that for a long moment, the printout spread in the bad light. The men who took him for a servant had also on another floor in another meeting been planning to take his authority. They just never knew the servant and the target were the same man. They humiliated him for his face and hunted him for his signature, and they never once connected the two. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. Who inside a city like this protects a machine like this for years and calls it honest work? Tell me your guess in the comments. You are closer to the answer than you think, because the fraud has a partner inside City Hall, and it is not who anyone expects. Halloran Sterling cannot answer the receipts, so it does the other thing powerful things do. It aims at the people holding them. First they reach Curtis Wade. A lawyer calls him all warmth and warning. Then a man Curtis has never met visits his apartment in the evening and stands a little too close in the doorway. They remind him his signature is on the beacon papers too. They suggest gently that a fronting scheme has more than one guilty party and that a jury might not see the difference between the man who built it and the man who signed for it. Curtis panics. He calls Delia and takes it all back. The papers, the diner, the confession. He says he misremembered. He says he was confused. He says, please leave my name out of it. Then he loses his job. The warehouse lets him go with no reason on the form. His hours vanish. A quiet word travels ahead of him to the next place and the next. His family feels the floor tilt under them, and there is nothing steady to grab. Not every wound in this story heals. This is one of them. Remember his name. Delia is next. There is no threat spelled out, which is how the practiced ones do it. Just a photograph slipped under her apartment door. Her car parked outside her home, taken from across the street the night before. The meaning is complete without a single word attached. She calls Bennett. Her voice is level, but he can hear the effort it takes to keep it there. They want me scared, she says. It's working. I'm doing it anyway. That night she does something the people who sent the photo did not expect. She scans it, logs the time it arrived, and files it with Callahan as evidence of witness intimidation. The thing meant to frighten her becomes another line in the record. They think fear is a wall, she tells Bennett. It's just one more receipt. Curtis is harder. Bennett drives out to see him alone. No reporter, no recorder. Curtis will not open the door all the way. Through the gap, he says the only honest thing left to him. I have a family. You have a title. When this is over, you go back to an office. I go back to nothing. Bennett does not argue. There is nothing to argue. He leaves a card in the door and drives home in silence. Some people pay more than others for the same truth. Bennett will carry that the whole way through. Then comes the smear aimed at Bennett himself. A story surfaces in a friendly outlet sourced to no one. It claims the executive director has a conflict of interest, and it points precisely at the old contract from the dossier, the one Halloran Sterling flagged weeks before any of this began. It asks whether a man with his history can be trusted to review a contract of this size. The story is thin. There is no substance under it, but thin stories move fast when money wants them to move, and by afternoon it is everywhere. Callahan keeps digging while the noise rises around them. She widens the audit across years of city awards, and the same shape appears again and again like a watermark held up to the light. The same kind of shell company, the same 30% fiction, the same small handful of names signing off. Beacon was not the first costume. It was only the newest one in a wardrobe that goes back years. The sixth receipt is the largest of all. This was never one bad contract. It was a machine running quietly for a long time, and the water deal was simply its biggest job yet. Halloran Sterling issues a statement. Its lawyers speak in the flat, rehearsed voice of people who have said these words before about other things. The firm says its subcontracting fully met every city requirement. It calls the allegations baseless and politically motivated, and it notes with practiced regret that the executive director himself may carry a conflict of interest that taints this entire review. It is a neat trick and an old one. They cannot answer the evidence, so they question the man who found it. Turn the light around, make the witness the suspect. By Friday, the pressure works the way pressure is designed to. The mayor's office calls. The voice is apologetic and immovable at once. They ask Bennett to step aside from the review until the questions about him are resolved. Bennett hangs up the phone. Outside his window, the evening traffic hums indifferent. Inside the room is very quiet. They have taken the one thing he trusted, the pen. The contract still sits on Bennett's desk. He is no longer permitted to touch it. This is the hardest part of being right, not the fight. The week after, when no one believes you yet and the fight has gone silent. The week when the people who cheered are suddenly busy, when the calls stop coming, when the silence in an office has a weight you can feel in your chest. Callahan is ordered to slow her audit while the conflict question is reviewed by others, which means by no one, which means by delay. Delia's editor grows nervous about the photograph of her car and asks her to hold the next story. Curtis has gone dark, afraid and out of work, and done being brave. The machine has done what machines do. It has found the moving part it wants to remove, and it has isolated it. Bennett sits alone in his office after hours. The building empties around him floor by floor until his is the only light. He does not go home. He reads the old contract they have hung around his neck. He reads it once. He reads it twice. Then a third time, the way he reads everything, because the second pass is what the writer forgot to hide, and the third is what even the writer never knew was there. On the third pass, he sees it. The old deal that supposedly proves he cannot be trusted carries the same fingerprints as the new one. The same kind of hollow shell. The same falsified utilization numbers. The same rhythm of money going out and circling back. He had approved it years ago, in good faith, trusting documents that were forged before they ever reached his desk. He was not the author of that fraud. He was its first victim. The machine had used him once already years ago, and he never knew. And now it was using that same theft to destroy him. But he cannot prove it. Not tonight. Tonight it is just a man in an empty building holding a paper that makes him look guilty, unable to make a single person listen. He stays in the dark office a long time. He thinks about the portraits on his wall, the men who held the chair before him, and wonders which of them would have signed the thing without ever visiting the party. He wonders how many bad contracts became public works simply because no one made the quiet visit and read the file twice. The thought does not comfort him. It steadies him. He did the work correctly, and the work is being punished, and both of those things can be true at once. That is the weak. You hold the line in the dark, and you do not yet know if anyone is coming. He thinks about leaving. He lets himself think about it honestly, the way he lets himself think about everything twice. There is a version of this where he signs a resignation, keeps his pension, and lets the contract find its way to some other desk that will not read the file twice. No one would blame him. The city would move on. The machine would keep running quieter, and he would grow old, knowing he had been right, and tired, knowing it had not mattered. He pours the cold coffee out and makes it fresh. He does not leave. The phone rings once that week. That is not a threat. It is his sister from 2 states away who does not know the details and does not need them. "You sound like our father did," she says, the year they pushed him out of the plant. He asks how their father got through it. There is a long pause on the line. "He didn't really," she says, "but he never let them make him small first." That part he kept. Bennett sits with that after she hangs up. He thinks about the 2 glasses, the laughter, the phones. He understands now that the wine was never really about the wine. It was a test the room did not know it was giving, a way of asking whether he would agree to be what they had decided he was. He had not agreed. That was the one thing they could not take with a phone call from the mayor's office. He opens the old contract again. He reads it a 4th time, and on the 4th pass, he stops looking for what makes him guilty and starts looking for who made him look that way. The forgery has a shape. Shapes have makers. Somewhere in this paper is the hand that moved it, and that hand has a name, and names can be found. He does not have it yet. But for the first time in a week, he is hunting again instead of bracing. I know some of you are ready to leave right here. This is the exact moment most people give up in the story and in life. Stay with him one more minute. Because across the city, someone has just decided to stop being invisible. An old file surfaces in the Inspector General's records, buried and forgotten under years of newer complaints. A human resources log. It lists prior grievances against Gregory Harding going back years. A server, a driver, 2 junior assistants, a pattern of small cruelties and quiet humiliations, each one settled with a check, each one sealed, each one erased so the next could happen clean. It proves Harding is exactly the man he showed Bennett he was on the rooftop. It proves the wine was not the accident of one bad night, but the habit of a whole career. But it may be arriving too late to matter. Bennett closes the file and rubs his eyes. The office is dark except for his lamp. Then his phone lights on the desk, a small blue glow in the quiet. A number he does not know. A message with no greeting and no name he recognizes at first. It reads, "I was there that night. I gathered the glass. I kept everything. Grace." Grace Wilson is 29 years old. She has worked as an assistant at Halloran Sterling for 3 years, invisible, in the way assistants are trained to be invisible, present for everything and counted for nothing. She is the woman who crouched to gather broken glass while 2 men poured wine on a stranger. She is also, it turns out, the woman who has spent 3 years quietly writing things down. They meet in a public library at a table by the window where the afternoon light comes in flat and honest. She sets down a worn notebook and a small recorder. Her hands do not shake. Whatever this costs her, she has already agreed to pay it. "My whole job is to be in the room and not be seen," she says. "People forget I'm there, so I hear everything, and a while ago I started writing it down because I didn't know what else to do with it." She has heard a great deal. She presses play on the recorder. Gregory Harding's voice fills the small space between them, relaxed, certain a man among his own. He is talking about the water contract. He boasts about the beacon arrangement like a clever thing he built. He calls the minority set aside a checkbox we buy. And he laughs easy and low about the man from the city who signs whatever we score for him. The 7th receipt is intent in his own voice with no lawyer present to soften it and no way to call it out of context. Delia publishes. Carefully this time with a document standing behind every single line so that nothing can be waved away as opinion. The story lands like weather. It does not ask to be believed, it simply shows. And within a day, the phones start. The contractors who lost bids to Halloran Sterling begin to call. Small firms, real ones, owned by the very people the set-aside was written to protect the people the wine was thrown at in spirit, long before it was thrown at Bennett, in fact. One of them drives 2 hours to say it in person. His name is on a company that lays pipe, a real crew, real trucks, 20 years of work. "We bid that job," he tells Delia, and his hands are flat on the table. "We were cheaper. We were qualified. We were told our technical score came up short. He says the word like it burns. "We laid off 9 people that spring, 9 families. And the work went to a company with no workers at all." He is not the only one. They go on record one after another. They name dates. They name the jobs they lost and the people they let go when the work went to a costume. One voice is a complaint. A dozen is a case. A dozen voices all describing the same machine from the outside is something money cannot photograph or threaten into silence. The tide turns in a single afternoon. The smear against Bennett shrinks beside the chorus until it looks like exactly what it was, a hand held up to block the light. Grace closes the notebook and rests her hand flat on the cover. "There's one more thing," she says. "In here, a ledger. I kept it because someone told me to log the payments and I did more carefully than they wanted." She pauses and for the first time her voice drops. "It has the names, all of them, including one from City Hall, someone everyone trusts." Grace opens the notebook to the ledger. It is handwritten, patient, 3 years deep, page after page in a small, even hand. It records every quarter of the beacon arrangement. Money in money, out the thin fee kept in the middle. It tracks the entire fronting scheme in the firm's own numbers kept by an assistant who was told to log payments and did exactly that more faithfully than anyone in the room ever imagined she would. The 8th receipt is the decisive one. Everything else pointed at the crime. This one is the crime written down by the hand that was ordered to hide it. Callahan matches the ledger against the bank, records line by line late into the night. Every circle of money lines up. In on Tuesday, out on Thursday, the fee in the middle, quarter after a quarter, year after year. Then she finishes her audit and puts a number on all of it. Across years of contracts, the machine skimmed an estimated $18.6 million in public funds taken from projects the city believed it was sharing with small firms taken from the exact communities the law was written to lift. The ledger does one more thing. It carries the double edge. Halfway down a page beside the largest transfers, a name repeats. Warren Doyle, the Deputy Director of Procurement, the most honest man in City Hall. He was not a bystander to this. He was the hinge the whole door swung on. He arranged the scores. He steered the awards. He reopened the closed window and turned the losing number into a winning one. And when Halloran Sterling decided it wanted Bennett Wells gone, it was Doyle who pulled Bennett's personnel file that flagged in the security log, Doyle who fed the firm the old contract, Doyle who built the conflict of interest that pushed Bennett off the review. The honest man was the machine's quiet spine. The trust the whole city placed in him was the very thing that let it run for years. There is a moment where Grace could keep that page to herself. The name from City Hall is the dangerous one. She could give them the fraud and still protect the powerful, and no one would ever know what she left out. It would be safer. It would be easy. She does not. Tell all of it, she says. Every name. Put it on the record. If we only tell the safe part, we're just running a smaller version of what they ran. Bennett looks at the ledger, then at her. He understands what she is choosing and what it will cost her, and that she is choosing it anyway. He understands, too, that the old contract that made him look guilty was Doyle's forgery all along. His name being cleared and Doyle's name being caught are not two events. They are one. He does not smile. He says only, put it on the record. Tuesday, the whole city gets to read it. The city council chamber is full and very quiet. Councilwoman Patricia Vaughn chairs the session. She gavels it open and states the matter plainly without theater. A $500 million contract. Allegations of fraud spanning years. Questions that will today be answered in public and on the record. Halloran Sterling is given the floor first. This is the right of reply, and Vaughn extends it fully. Councilman Ted Grantham reads the firm's position into the record in a flat, neutral voice. The firm denies all wrongdoing. It maintains its subcontracting met every city requirement. It regrets the disruption to a vital public project and reserves the right to respond in full through counsel. Then the receipts arrive one at a time, read aloud where no lawyer can bury them and no photograph of a parked car can stop them. The email chain where Harding and Doyle traded scores 3 weeks before the bids were sealed. The scoring sheet, edited hours after the deadline closed, a losing number turned winning by a hand reaching back through a locked door. The bank records money moving in a circle through a company that never poured a foot of concrete. The audit and its number, $18.6 million. And then the dossier, the file Halloran Sterling built on Bennett Wells weeks before the party, the plan to remove him through a conflict they invented. Read aloud in the chamber, it stops being a smear and becomes a confession. They did not question his integrity because they doubted it. They questioned it because they feared it, and they feared it because it was real. Gregory Harding sits very still as his own timeline is laid out in front of the city. When Vaughn asks him directly to explain the wire transfers, he leans to his lawyer, then straightens, and says his counsel will respond in writing. The room hears the surrender folded inside the sentence. Douglas Sterling tries to step back from all of it. He says he trusted his subordinates. He says he was not aware of the details, but his own signature sits at the bottom of the utilization reports, and the reports are false, and everyone in the chamber understands that a captain does not get to unknow his own ship after it runs aground. Councilman Grantham, who read the firm's denial into the record, asked the question the firm's supporters want asked. Isn't it possible, he says, that this is one company's paperwork error and not a scheme? Callahan answers without heat. She sets 3 contracts on the table spanning 6 years, 3 different shell companies, one identical pattern. Money in, money out, the fee in the middle, same rhythm, same signatures approving it. An error happens once, she says. This happened every quarter for 6 years. That is not an error. That is a business model. Grantham has no follow-up. The neutral question has been answered on the record, and the answer belongs to the room now. Warren Doyle does not speak at all. When his name is read aloud beside the largest transfers, he lowers his eyes to the table in front of him, and the most honest man in City Hall becomes the quietest man in the room. Bennett Wells speaks last. He does not raise his voice. He never has. "I signed nothing," he says. "That was the whole point. The contract sat on my desk because it had not yet earned a signature. Tonight the city knows why." He closes the folder in front of him. A law meant to open a door was used to lock people out. That is what the record shows. I don't need to raise my voice about it. The record speaks for itself. He never raises his voice. He raises the record. Vaughn looks down the length of the dais at the faces of the other members. Then she calls the vote. The vote is unanimous. The contract is suspended and sent back out to bid, this time under independent review. The Inspector General's findings go to the prosecutor's office. Gregory Harding and Douglas Sterling are removed from the firm and named in the criminal referral. Warren Doyle resigns before the week is out, the honest man reputation gone in a single afternoon of public reading. His name now a lesson other officials will quietly repeat to themselves. Grace Wilson is protected as a whistleblower. The ledger she kept for 3 years in her small, even hand becomes the spine of the case against them all. Not every wound heals. Curtis Wade is cleared of any blame, but he lost his job and a year of his life for signing his name on a form, and no ruling gives that year back to him or his family. This story does not pretend otherwise. Some costs are simply paid by the people who could least afford them, and the record can name that too. The pipe contractor who drove 2 hours to testify gets a call a month later. The rebid is open, fair this time. He does not know yet if he will win it, but he will get to compete, and after years of a rigged table competing feels like its own kind of justice. Bennett Wells goes back to his bare desk and his black coffee. The contract is gone from it, now returned to the process it was always meant to serve. He never had to force the folder open. In the end, they opened it themselves. They took him for a waiter because of his face. They threw wine on him and toasted the help and never once asked whose pen decided their future. It was his. It always had been. It was sitting on his desk the whole time. The pen was always heavier than they thought. He signs nothing that day either. He reads the new bidder's files instead, twice the way he reads everything, because the habit that made 2 executives laugh is the same habit that brought them down. The quiet was never weakness. It was attention. It always had been. Here is the question I'll leave with you. When a room decides a man does not matter because of the color of his skin, what is it really telling you about the room and about everyone in it who laughed instead of standing up? Say it in the comments. If this story stayed with you, like it, and subscribe, because there is more here than one night and one contract. Someone appointed Warren Doyle. Someone signed off on him year after year and looked away. Next, we find out who they are and why they are still walking free.